I don't care if the computer's getting mad at me because
You can turn off spell check.
We'll talk key systems, trash bay tubes, and more.
Transbay tubes. Be nice. It's a decent piece of infrastructure, even if it's a piece of shit. Woke liberal leftists destroyed by train in
liberal
Transbay tube.
Woke liberal leftists indoctrinate San Francisco with a Transbay shaft.
The liberals are transing our oceans now.
My favorite verb.
Where's our straight bay tube?
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
The heterosexual tube as God intended.
Well, we can build that in Marin County.
The hetero bay tube. It stays on one side. It only goes to Oakland.
And stops in the middle.
Yeah.
At the island.
Yeah.
Oh, the cis bay tube. Excuse me.
Oh, yeah. My bad. Got all your woke vocab working.
Yeah, it just goes to, what is it, Governor's Island or whatever, and then you stop there. You have to get off, go to the surface, get on a ferry or a bus.
But that's a transfer.
Fuck!
No.
So, you're just stuck on the island.
I'm so woke right now.
Oh, we could just go from Marin County to Alcatraz Island.
I mean, that would still be a cis bay tube, so I'm down.
And just stop there, and then you can take the ferry with the tourists.
Yeah?
Hear me out. Central Subway extension, but instead of going to Geary Boulevard and across the Golden Gate Bridge, it just keeps going straight until it gets to Marin County, just under the widest part of the bay, like 8 miles of light rail tunnel.
Love it.
Great. Good plan.
Love it.
I'm looking at a
Every
map
American
now.
transit agency be like, I love this so much. This is the best idea I've ever heard.
And you wonder why it costs
Even
money.
better, can we put BRT in it?
Then we might get funding.
Yes.
Yeah.
New Starts program. Federal government gives all of its money to build a BRT tunnel under the bay.
I see no issue with
Instead of extending the central...
With battery buses.
Instead of extending the
yeah.
central subway, we extend the, what is it? What road are we next to? Kyle, help. Van Ness. We extend the Van Ness BRT all the way to Marin County under the bay.
I'm gonna die. Hot take. The central subway should have been built like Market Street in 2 levels, one for BART and one for Muni, and the BART level should extend out into Marin County.
That probably would have been a good idea, but they didn't do that.
We should redefine what a bus is so we can get federal funding to make bus.
We
rapid
just buy,
transit.
like, you know those Pacer things that they had in the UK that were a rail bus or whatever? It was just a bus with rails instead of, Yeah, we just get one of those, call it Bus Rapid Transit, but it's just regular rapid transit, just with the shitty buses.
I don't see any... Or do the Tom Scott video thing where it's a bus that turns into a train.
Oh my god. We should have more of those. This is how we can get the feeder, like the good feeder qualities of a busway and the capacity and speed of a light rail system all in one go.
It just turns into it.
Exactly.
Yeah. No transfer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no transfers.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
We might get funding then.
Yeah, we can even get it in Florida.
We could do it in Texas.
Or Texas be like, well, if this thing don't have any transfers in it, then I am happy. Okay.
How to sell transit. Oh, not transit. Wait. Moving people.
Moving it.
Moving it, yeah. Move it.
Move it.
Move it.
We're starting a startup. We're calling it Move It so we can sell public transportation to places that don't like trans people.
Mm-hmm. And tell people that their cars contain...
Trans fat?
Estrogen.
No.
Estrogen carburetor.
There's soy in your car. It's turning you into a slur.
Yeah. Love it.
Okay.
Transmission is what I was going for.
No! There's no transmission in our buses. They use direct power to move.
They've got a direct drive.
That's right.
Yeah.
They're electric.
Infinite gearbox. No transmission required.
Well, this is how electric motors work. They just don't have gearboxes and
Exactly.
transmissions. Oh, we could probably get DeSantis unironically on board with this.
Just like, we need... I can't do a Ron DeSantis voice. What does he sound like?
I imagine
know.
he's like really irritated.
Gay Donald.
Ron DeSanctimonious.
Ron DeSanctimonious. I love Donald Trump so much.
Little
Man,
D.
he's just Little D.
Did he actually call him Ron DeSanctimonious?
Oh, he
Right,
says it
Ron
all the time.
DeSanctimonious. He calls him Little D.
Well, there's other ones.
I love Donald
Homophobic
Trump.
my ass.
Look, he may have been like a terrible president, but he was really funny, and
This
I think
is
that this is
true.
underrated how funny Donald Trump is.
He's best with nicknames, to be honest.
Oh, I know. How do you come up with like just on the spot Ron DeSanctimonious?
See, it's objectively not good, and that's what makes it so
I
good.
know.
Tiny D.
Man, he is gonna smack that little weirdo down in the primaries so hard.
I would hate to run against him.
This is gonna be a special thing to watch.
It's gonna be so fun. As a political science major, I've never looked forward to anything more in my entire life than the future Republican debates.
Oh my goodness.
Donald Trump. Ron DeSanctimonious, he's very bad. He doesn't know what he's doing. You know, I call him Little D because he has no plans for America. Unlike me, I have huge plans. Big wall, big immigration, China, big league.
Okay, here's a list of nicknames for Ron DeSantis.
Oh boy.
I forgot about Meatball Ron.
I forgot.
I don't get that one.
It's because he's like red and he has like sausage fingers.
See, how'd you come up with that? That's so creative.
know.
Tiny D.
Okay.
Ron
Easy enough.
De-establishment. Shut down Ron. Ron Dishonest.
Ron DeSantis.
D-Soros.
Ron DeSoros.
Ron DeSanctimonious.
Okay.
And Ron DeSanctus.
We spent all the IQ on coming up with this stuff.
I almost forget about Meatball Ron.
I think that's been his favorite one lately since he got indicted.
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay.
It's a shame he was president because he could have been a really good nickname coming up.
Like you just
Yeah, is that a job in the cabinet?
Obama should have hired him
As speechwriter.
to be like speechwriter, and so Obama can just be like, you know, small dick Romney or whatever.
It's such a good way to shut people down. It's it's
call
amazing.
them names.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's a good, insane plan.
Okay, we should probably start this because I have a bunch of homework tonight.
Yeah.
Good plan. Do we have a Patreon episode today, or is that next week?
No, I didn't do it because I don't have time.
Do it next week.
Yeah, and I finished this like just before this because I spent all afternoon writing a paper. So
Oh, we can read your paper.
no, you cannot read my paper.
Aw, even if it's just for the patrons.
We're not reading my paper for the patrons. We'll record the stupid episode next time when I'll be less busy.
But we should record your paper.
I have something we can read for the patrons.
Oh, do we want to read my like little article I had to write on the Greater Idaho Movement and why it's bad for democracy? I can do that if you want.
Yeah, let's do that. But first, the actual episode.
Welcome to the Internet, live from the Marriott Library at the University of Utah. This is the Red Line Podcast. I'm your host, quote, a small gray orb floating in midair, unquote, and these are my co-hosts.
Kyle Holland and...
Alex Fielder. Today we're talking about BART, everyone's favourite Simpson character turned regional metro. We'll talk key systems, Transbay tubes, and more after the news.
Cleveland is getting new trains.
Wasn't Portland getting new trains the other week?
Yeah, but this is a bigger train order than Portland's train order.
Okay.
Portland got 3 trains. They're getting like maybe 60.
That's more than 3.
With one of the oldest rapid transit fleets in the country, the Greater Cleveland Regional Transportation Authority is long overdue for a replacement. On April 19th, the GCRTA announced that it has finalized a contract to purchase 24 brand new Siemens S200 light rail vehicles to begin their fleet replacement, with an option to acquire up to 60. The new cars will be all high floor with 2 sets of doors to allow for boarding from both high and low platforms. Interestingly, this rail replacement plan will be the first ever conversion of a heavy rail line to light rail stock in the United States, as the GCRTA works to unify operating standards across the network.
But keep Cleveland weird.
I don't think that's a thing.
No.
Well, they have 2 sets of doors, so.
That's, you know...
I think that's weird enough.
That's definitely something you do if you're expecting anyone to ride your system. I don't know why they don't just buy, like, the Muni rolling stock
with the stairs that go up and down. This is an established technology.
Like, why wouldn't you do that?
Siemens makes this technology. These are Siemens trains, so why can't they just put the stairs in the trains?
Because no one rides, like, and I'm normally not this person, you know, but literally no one rides Cleveland's rail system.
So we can have a crappy door arrangement in the lower
because capacity does not matter.
Capacity? Okay, cool. That's the plan.
Okay.
I mean, if you've seen their current rolling stock, their light rail rolling stock has an average fleet age of 42 years, and their heavy rail rolling stock has an average age of 39 years. So it's all getting replaced in one go.
You know, when CTA's trains get to an average age of 40 years, they'll keep maintaining them till they burn into the ground.
I do wonder if they're going to change any service patterns since they're like...
Now the train can go on all the track.
Since they're doing a one system configuration instead of a heavy rail and a light rail that happen to share platforms in some places.
Special.
Yeah. Anyway, this has been Les News.
Keep Cleveland weird.
Les Affaires. Don't keep Cleveland weird.
I've had enough.
Cities should be more normal. It's my opinion.
And apparently about half of cities have the keep insert city weird sort of thing.
Yeah, I know. We have it here too.
Weird. Yeah.
There's a couple signs I can think of that.
Great.
We should
put up opposing signs.
We should put keep Salt Lake City normal.
Yeah.
Or make Salt Lake City normal.
I feel like people would take offense to that.
I feel like they would think that we're like Mormons and we just want to
probably.
Yeah, we want to have spooling suburbs.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And no
what I mean by normal is like...
Do like city things, like build infrastructure and have restaurants.
I don't know what I mean by normal. Like, people should, like, act nice to one another is what I mean by normal.
So
like, and not yell at each other on the train anymore. Like, we should stop that. Like, be normal, guys.
Well,
see, we would be normal if we still had streetcars and everyone held hands and...
Well, define normal because a lot more crap happens on many other transit systems than does here. At least you don't have, like, mass stabbings.
That much.
Yeah.
Yeah, mass, yeah.
Go UTA.
I don't think we've had a stabbing this year.
That's good. We still got, like...
There's time to change it, baby.
In Minecraft.
Let's get those numbers up in Minecraft.
No, we don't have that much petty theft, which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unlike on BART, where they have a lot of petty theft.
Oh, can we put more rich white people on our trains?
That is not the solution. The solution,
poor white people.
The solution is to have more people with jobs in our trains. People with jobs don't
steal.
Generally, yes.
Because if you crime or
steal. Fun fact, if you have economic stability, a place to live and a job, you probably don't do crimes.
Well, you don't steal because why, and you don't violent crime because then no job.
So in other words, the actual solution to crime is a good social safety net, but we're not ready for that conversation, and neither is BART.
Do 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 do.
Anyway, so what?
Okay, Bart Simpson, would you like to introduce this episode?
Crap, what's the thing he would say? Ay, caramba, I sure do like trains.
He would say, eat my shorts, car drivers.
Yeah, eat my shorts, cagers. I'm taking the BART. I am El Barto. Etc. Wait.
You should ride Bart in Bart cosplay.
I'm sure someone's probably done that.
That has to have happened.
Like, there's like... Oh my gosh, he's gonna look it up. If this is like a non-copyrighted picture, it has to go in the image now. But like... That's great! I love it. Ay caramba, I sure do like trains. Yeah, anyway. So the history of BART truly begins in 1893 when Francis, quote, Borax, unquote, Smith.
What, did he invent borax?
If you wonder how he got rich, yes, he did.
Okay, cool.
Began buying up land in the East Bay and developing it using electric streetcar lines.
Why can't we have streetcar tyrants today?
Because capital costs. Because you didn't have to make things safe back in the day. You could just kind of build them. So it could be two guys with a shovel and some railroad ties that would build your entire electric streetcar line. Versus now when you have to be safe and there's these standards and
at that point it's cheaper just to build a crappy road.
And you can't just have some guy build your rolling stock in his backyard. Yeah.
Streets are full too with cars.
That's also true.
Yeah.
But
good planning.
Yeah. In 1903, he founded the Oakland, San Francisco, and San Jose Railroad.
Oh, okay, so this person is single-handedly responsible for all crime in modern-day Oakland.
That would be racism.
Oh, was Francis Borax Smith racist?
Well, probably. He was a white guy in the 1800s. But, no. The reason... Are we really going to talk about crime in Oakland? Fine. The reason there is crime in Oakland is racism. Period. They built freeways to put all black people in one place, period, and then sold them cocaine that they bought to fund rebels in Central America and gave it to them, and then there were drug wars and redlining and all sorts of nasty stuff from the cops that made Oakland into a dangerous place in the 90s.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Now it's not that dangerous.
So how about we blow up all the freeways and stop being racist?
I don't know if blowing up the freeways would help at this point with the racism.
Oh, yeah.
Because the people who were, redline now can't afford to live in Oakland anymore because it costs $1 billion to live in the worst part of town.
Great.
So, there you go.
So the railroad is being founded.
Yeah.
And the naming is uncreative.
It would go on to be renamed the Key System after someone noticed that their route map was shaped like a key.
Also, that's a better name. The Oakland, San Francisco, and San Jose Railroad is a dumb name.
Look, railroad naming conventions are
Place Railroad.
If UTA was a railroad from the 1800s, it would be named the Salt Lake City, Draper, Daybreak, and West Valley Railway.
Traction Company.
And Traction Company.
Light and Traction Company.
Yeah.
They put the lights on Parleys.
Exactly. You see, yeah, it's a light and traction company. So initially, passengers seeking to cross the bay had to transfer from... Yes,
underwater.
Kyle, they had to walk...
In scuba gear.
Yes.
With lead weights on their feet.
Which existed in 1903.
Well, they had the really, really creepy leather bubbles with the tiny glass windows with the metal cages over them.
The Scooby-Doo villain scuba suit, as we say.
You guys can't see the face I'm making right now, but
No, so they started swimming across the bay.
No, so they had to take the streetcars and then do a transfer to a ferry.
Oh, we have swimming machines now that swim for you.
Yeah, come right up to my Victorian swimming machine. It swims just like a real man at 4 miles an hour across the bay. Look at that sucker go.
It's powered by horses on treadmills.
Powered by 14 horses on the finest treadmills to be imported from India. Land of exotic silks and spices. Gee, I sure do hate black people.
It's spot on. It's crazy. You've even got the volume down where they just yell.
Yeah. Look at those commuters go. So anyway, they would get off on this really long pier they had sticking out into the bay that all the trains would go up to, and the commuter trains from Southern Pacific.
So everybody gets off the side of the train onto the side of the ferry.
It was a big old terminal building they had out in stilts in the bay.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
That's awesome.
It's very fun. But then, there's all this increasing demand because the East Bay is growing and San Francisco is growing, and all these people are trying to get to San Francisco from the East Bay because...
ferries are slow and expensive.
Jobs are there.
Interestingly.
Interestingly.
Commuting be like?
Well, ferries aren't particularly expensive, but anyways.
Well, compared to trains.
It's actually, anyway, not completely dissimilar.
Cool.
Like,
Listen to our ferry
in terms
episode.
of operating costs, because, you know, the whole point of both ferries and trains is to put a lot of people into one thing run by, like, 1 to 5 people,
Yeah.
right?
But, like, cost to make one trip across the bay and back, for example.
Yeah, it might be more expensive.
Probably
is more
especially
expensive.
given that it takes a lot more time.
It does take longer, but you can
And
also
a lot
put
more
more
energy.
people on a ferry than you can put on a train.
This is true. It also takes more time and energy.
Yes. So I don't know. Anyway, so they built the Bay Bridge in 1936
The
to
first one.
facilitate commerce across the Bay Area.
The first Bay Bridge.
The first Bay
Before it
Bridge, the
broke.
one that didn't break, or the one that did break. It opened in 1936, and key system trains began rolling directly across the lower deck of the bridge into San Francisco.
Oh, cool.
So there was actually trains across the bay before the current trains across the bay.
Good.
Along the lower deck of the bridge,
Mhm.
what was on the upper deck?
Cars.
Oh, okay.
And there were cars on the lower deck as well, but there was like a reservation for all the interurban trains. So
Okay.
Cool.
it was kind of fun. Ridership peaked during wartime years, as it did almost everywhere, with about 22 million people riding the key system across the bay in 1945. So that's a lot of people, right?
I would say.
Yeah. But in 1947, after the war ended, the key system was bought up by the infamous National City Lines.
Ooh.
Does anyone remember National City Lines
Yeah,
from
we've
episode
talked about
3 of
this
the
one
Red Line
before.
podcast?
Yep.
Who definitely were not involved in a conspiracy to destroy public transportation in the United States run by GM or anything.
No, that'd be despicable.
That would be preposterous.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty rude, I'd say.
Anyway, I should note that conspiracy is widely disputed.
Doesn't mean it's not true, though.
It's widely disputed, though, so I'm not going to endorse it. But, you know, National City Lines, for some reason, began to cut service. And
That's
ridership,
strange, huh?
and
It's
they
because-
raised fares.
It's because
What?
of falling demand for transportation across
And
the
then
bay.
ridership began to fall.
There
And
was-
it kept falling, and they kept raising fares and cutting service, and it kept falling. And then suddenly, in 1958, we have to cut the key system. It's going away. There's no one riding it. We just everyone needs to drive across the bay.
Yeah,
That's perfectly fair.
As we can see by BART, there's exactly zero demand for transportation by rail across the bay.
Clearly not.
No, why would there be?
BART definitely didn't carry like 3 times as many people across the bay as the Bay Bridge on the average day back in the day. I think it still carries more people across the bay than the Bay Bridge, but like
Even in
not as
prime
by
BART
much as
era.
it used to be, yeah. But anyway, so yeah, in 1958, last trains rolled over the Bay Bridge, and then before too long, and despite the best efforts of the then new AC Transit to preserve the tracks, they were torn up to make room for additional automobile traffic over the Bay Bridge.
So it became a double-decker auto bridge.
Yeah, now it's just like 6 lanes on the bottom in one direction and 6 lanes on the top in the other.
And this
I've been over it. It's kind of wild.
That's
and this
insane.
modification added capacity.
Of cars.
Oh,
No.
I was thinking
No,
of
of people.
people.
Who cares
Come
about
on.
that shit?
Who cares about people? Yeah,
Get on a bus.
Wait a second. If we have self-driving cars, then they can just drive themselves around, and then they can buy themselves replacements too, and they can buy new tires for themselves.
And they can put their mind in
What
a new
are
car.
you
They can fill up
talking
their
about?
own gas, and then the people can take the train and get there faster.
This is like such a wild tangent. It doesn't even it's not even a tangent because it has no tangential
Well,
relationship
because
to what we were
GM's whole
just
thing
talking
is like
about.
more cars, modifying the Bay Bridge, more cars. Does it really matter that there's people in the cars if the car companies are getting the money and the oil
That's
companies are getting the
interesting.
money?
And you see, the toll authority for the bridge, right,
Yeah, they'll
still
get
gets
money.
their money.
And then the cars just drive around.
Still needs repairs.
So we just pay for the tolls on the bridge by driving an endless stream of
Self-driving-
automated
of
cars
self-driving
over it.
cars, yeah, and then the people go on BART, which is also automated.
But then, out of the blue, suddenly the Bay Area had a massive traffic problem.
And
What?
yeah, really? Oh,
That's That's
I
shocking.
forgot that unlike trains, cars don't just like magically disappear at the end of the line.
Right, and it turns out that you can't build another Bay Bridge because
It's big and expensive.
wildly big, wildly expensive, and also doesn't carry that many people, interestingly.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, what are we going to do? We have a big problem. And then somebody's like, hey, the year is 1947, and the Army and Navy, for some reason, are like, we should build a tube under the bay carrying... What do you think that they thought we should put under the bay?
Horse-drawn carriages.
Tanks. What, submarines. Submarine rapid transit.
Shocked.
Where did
You can make it work.
Where
You
did the
can make
H
it work.
come from?
Submarine howitzer area rapid. You gotta tap your fare card and then climb down in the top of the submarine.
And then fire off a howitzer to get the thing going?
Yeah.
To start the chain reaction in the nuclear engine? I don't know how that works.
Shoot a missile out the back.
But the Army and Navy were like, hey, we should put high-speed electric trains under the bay.
Because they hold people.
Because they hold a lot of people, and we can't build another Transbay bridge.
And it would cost less than building another bridge.
Well, I mean, probably not, but like it can carry a lot more people than the bridge can.
So per unit people, it would cost way less.
Yeah, right. And we're trying to get 1 billion people into the financial district to work, 9 to 5 counting spoons or whatever people do in offices.
So, the Army did it?
The Army and the Navy were the original ones who came up with like the current idea of the Transbay.
They must have been
tube.
bored once we ran out of war.
The Army Corps of Engineers was no longer like frantically building air bases, and the Seabees were no longer frantically building air bases in the Pacific every 2 days, so they needed something to do.
Could this have been like, oh, we only have a bridge right now? Maybe people would definitely target that during
The Russians!
See that too.
That could also be a
We still
a
need...
rationale.
See, maybe military-industrial complex good as long as we put it to work doing like everyday stuff.
See, that's how we should nationalize railroads.
We've seen from Muni that the military-industrial complex doing things that are not military is very bad, as evidenced by the trains, the Boeing trains.
Okay, well maybe Boeing just took the air things, and then whichever
Helicopter rapid transit.
Whichever military contractor makes train equipment for the
No
military.
fixed guideway costs. Just get like those Chinook helicopters that they use in like Iraq. The big 2-engine ones. They can carry like 500 people in them. Just You
and you commute to school.
Yeah. Sounds
Elevator,
fun,
elevator?
Yeah. Wonkavator rapid transit.
That'd be pretty quick.
That's
That'd be
literally
just personal
that's
rapid
just PRT.
transit. Yeah. So
Except with more wheels.
and people have been kicking around this idea since 1911, but nobody knew how to build anything like that until like the 50s. So in 1951, the state legislature of California created the San Francisco Bay Area Rapid Transit Commission, which was initially comprised of 26 representatives from each of the 9 counties that touched the bay. By 1957, they had drawn up a master plan for both transportation and development in the entire Bay Area, which would be adopted by the Regional Planning Organization 10 years later. Engineering for the project was ongoing between 1957 and 1962, forming the basis for the system that BART would become. Initially, it was planned to be a 5-county system running from the peninsula through San Francisco and across the bay to Oakland, where it would split in 2, running both north and south to serve all of the East Bay. There would also be a line along Geary Boulevard in San Francisco, crossing the Golden Gate Bridge to serve Marin County. So,
ambitious.
what everyone wants today.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we didn't build it when it was cheap.
No.
And now we'll probably never have it.
Yeah.
Well, we might have like bougie Caltrain.
We could get it.
We'll probably have bougie
We're
Caltrain.
American. We can do whatever we want.
'Cause I'm proud to be an American, 'cause at least I know I'm free.
More like the Golden Gate Bridge.
I can drive everywhere.
I can drive my truck anywhere I want, and parking will be free, and I'm proud to stand up. They still can't see me over the hood, and I get run down on Main. Make a good country western singer.
Yeah, know that.
Yeah, you would.
Realistic.
Not really.
Pretty freeing, circling for parking.
Yeah. So the final plan was created in 1961, and community engagement began shortly thereafter. Unfortunately, San Mateo County, on the peninsula south of San Francisco, withdrew from the plan due to the existence of Caltrain, or at its predecessor at this time, which was still the Southern Pacific Commute.
See previous episodes.
See previous episodes, yeah. Which forced Marin County to withdraw, so only San Francisco, Alameda, and Contra Costa counties would see new rapid transit service.
I thought Marin County withdrew over concerns over the Golden Gate Bridge, not over
Footnote,
this.
there were also concerns about whether or not trains could feasibly run over the Golden Gate Bridge, creating even more concerns about running trains to Marin County. The financial reason they had to pull out was because San Mateo County pulled out. The, engineering reason that they sort of thought about pulling out was because of the bridge.
Gotcha.
So the final reduced plan was presented to the voters in 1962 and approved by a narrow 61.2 to 38.8 vote.
Which in California is narrow because the margin is 60.
Because 60.
I still hate that.
It's very cursed.
61.2 sounds like a smashing success.
What was that meme I sent you earlier, Kyle?
I don't remember.
I remember. It was it said, California, this is from Twitter user @leftistbraden. California be like, President/Senate, D67R33. Initiative, should we give people the death penalty for camping outside a park? Yes, 72, no, 28. And I feel like that describes California politics for
Muni
those who...
funding, 5941.
Yeah, 5941. Murder homeless people, 6139.
Yeah, like we said last episode, this whole 60% threshold isn't really helping good things get passed and bad things not get passed.
Yeah, really. It's mostly just stopping good things from getting passed. But anyway. Yeah. But it was passed, and it was actually quite unexpected that it was passed because most, pundits and people thought it wouldn't be passed. Because, this is...
Really expensive.
This is the age of the automobile. We're going to drive everywhere.
Except not over the Bay Bridge yet.
Except apparently over the Bay Bridge because it took 5 hours. So...
something physics, something. Which apparently apply to cars.
Do they?
Yeah, Karl Marx wrote about it in his book.
Das Kapital.
Yeah.
So voters approved nearly $800 million in bond issues to build a new rapid transit system, which is over $1.4 billion in today money.
That's it?
You got, hold on, there's some more costs. The rest of the costs, which would be particularly for the fabulously complicated and expensive Transbay tube, was to be financed by tolls on the Bay Bridge.
Hey, I love that.
It was going to be $133 million, which is like $200 or $300 million today.
That's it?
This is just like the Portland Tunnel, which you and I were freaking out about because it cost like $150 million for 3 miles of double track. So anyway, when completed, the nearly $1 billion project total would be 71 miles long and the largest single public works project ever undertaken by a locality.
That's it?
71 miles of rapid transit for $1 billion, which is like $2 billion today. So, I don't know. That's not like $25 million a mile for a full-ass rapid transit system.
How much did they spend on the Central Subway again?
$1 billion a mile. So they got the entirety of BART for the same cost as the Central Subway.
Wow.
Dies.
So my point being, every American city should have just built the most extensive metro possible in the 1960s.
Yeah.
California NIMBYism showed itself early on, however, as
proving itself to be a cost multiplier
and a force to be reckoned with as soon as the project was underway.
Isn't this before NEPA?
I think so, yes.
So that makes this even harder.
Only a month into the final engineering process, the first lawsuit came in. In all, over 162 separate agreements would be reached with cities, counties, and other local parties during BART's initial construction phases.
Do we have a list of what these lawsuits are about?
I don't think it's worth it. It's all stupid shit.
Well,
and you know
I
it.
was ready to be amused.
Yes.
The underground grade-separated metro is ruining the view. The tiny-ass viaduct is ruining my view of the freeway.
Haven't you been to Fruitvale? Look at that viaduct. It's ruining the
tiny. can barely even see the giant freeway behind it.
That's crazy. Is that a lot, or like relatively?
What do you mean?
Like
The
number
of
lawsuits?
I'd say it's pretty low given the
Because that doesn't seem
area.
too crazy to me for a whole system.
Pretty normal, but still 162 lawsuits.
Over what?
Over mostly nothing. Like, not great.
Mm-hmm.
So construction officially began in 1964 after a groundbreaking ceremony presided over by Lyndon Baines Johnson, President of the United States.
Damn.
And a 4-mile test track in Contra Costa County was the first to be built, allowing BART's advanced, broad-gauge trains to enter testing. Construction began to ramp up in 1966, with the first work being done on the Oakland subway, and the first of 57 metal sections of the Transbay tube being lowered to the bottom of the bay. And I think it bears, reminding just how much of, a marvel the Transbay tube is. It's 3.8-mile underwater crossing built to support BART. It's one of the most remarkable pieces of engineering and transportation infrastructure in the United States. It was designed by Parsons, Brinkerhoff, Tudor, Bechtel, a consortium of firms brought on by the Bay Area Rapid Transportation District to design all the technical aspects of the BART project. And like we said, 57 metal sections, all constructed on the shore in San Francisco, then floated out into the bay, sunk, covered in concrete, sand, other materials, keep it down. Then they would go inside, open it up, connect it to the rest of the tube using pressurized air.
I was going to ask about the buoyancy, so...
Yeah, no,
weighted
it down with concrete, because otherwise it would float.
I think there
perfectly, yeah.
Yeah, I think there were some later retrofits, but it mostly just worked.
Cool.
Yeah, and it's got, it's a pretty standard undersea tunnel design. It's 2 tubes, one on each side of the main
the tubes are
of the
BART
thing,
train
and then
shaped.
there's ventilation and an escape duct in the middle.
Yeah.
So, pretty neat.
Very practical.
Pretty nifty.
Especially practical back in the day when they don't have the infinite tunnel boring expertise we have in 2023.
Well, it's
and also geography.
There's something you have to understand about the Bay Area's soil and rock conditions is that there are no soil or rock conditions.
Ooh, fun.
And they're very bad.
I believe this was also their earthquake resistance strategy. It's just to have the tube sitting on the soft dirt and then some really fancy flexible things at the end.
Yes.
And when the big earthquake came that broke the Bay Bridge, the BART tube was literally completely fine.
Yeah.
Because all the earthquake mitigations worked as expected. And the land shook and the tube was kind of just sitting on all the soft stuff and the ends were flexing as designed.
Well.
Yeah. No, it's very seismically resistant, and it's had upgrades since it was built to make it more seismically resistant when the big one trademark comes.
They spent a lot of money on the seismic retrofits.
Yeah.
A small fraction of what they spent rebuilding the Bay Bridge.
And I will remind you that this thing costs less than $100 million a mile in today dollars.
That's very impressive.
Meanwhile, the Blue Line extension.
Yeah. So then construction on the Berkeley Hills Tunnel was completed in 1967, the same year that the famous Market Street Subway began construction. And the Market Street Subway was a nightmare and a half to build because San Francisco is a very high water table. And
really?
So they're just pumping crap tons of stuff out, and they're spending $1 million a day on workers, just huge amounts of people building at all times. For 4 years, it was wild.
Not to mention the trestles on top, so you can get to the businesses and buildings.
Yeah, and the Muni trestles.
And you got to make sure that big buildings don't fall into the hole that you dug out of the entire street.
Very true. And while this was going on, contracts were given out for the first automatic train control system in the United States in 1967 to Westinghouse Electric for $27 million.
That's it?
Mm-hmm, for the entire system. And then for the new train sets in 1969 to Rohr Industries. ROHR, not ROAR.
I imagine they don't exist anymore.
I think they do. I just don't know what they do.
Cool.
I just looked it up. Rohr Incorporated. Is that Rohr Industries?
I think so.
Aerospace manufacturing.
God damn it! What is it with Americans? Okay, but these ones worked out at least.
Yeah.
So there you go. Space-age trains, because they're built by a company that makes space things.
Ah, perfect.
Yeah. So the Transbay tube was finally completed in August of 1969.
Whoa.
Nice.
It was the summer of 69.
No, it's the fall of 69.
Whoa. And the final tunnels on Market Street would be finished 2 years later in 1971. Unfortunately, due to huge cost overruns due to NIMBYs who forced the relocation of 15 miles of track and 15 stations, as well as high inflation throughout the 1960s, it was increasingly clear that BART would be short of the funds that it needed to build out the system. A cutback was threatened, and despite a $150 million bailout from the California state government, it would take help from an unlikely source for trains to start rolling under the bay.
Ooh.
Was that a good finisher?
Yeah, cliffhanger.
Good cliffhanger.
Yeah. And that source is, bleep this out.
Unlikely.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Ooh. Spooky.
So,
Oh, we didn't even talk about the part where when they originally opened the tube, for one day you got to walk through it.
yes, that was
And
the thing.
one of the people who worked on the project, I think, was so excited about being the first person to walk under the bay that he started walking through the tubes before they finished draining them at the very end. Like, think sections 1 through 56 are done, and they're putting in 57, and it's still, like, full of water and everything. And he's starting his walk.
Huh?
Good for him.
I like ambition.
He's the predecessor of modern foamers. So, yeah, that's all I got for you today. Like, it's a two-parter, so next time you'll get to learn how Beep saved BART.
Great, I don't even have to beep that.
Yeah, because I
Thank
said
you.
Beep.
I should get you a button. Linus Tech Tips has one for the WAN
Beep.
show. So anytime he wants to say a swear word on air, he just pushes the button at the same time.
Ooh.
I like that.
Yeah, so I can just be like, beep, 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 beep,
Well,
beep,
but you
beep,
can still
beep,
say the
beep,
swear
beep,
word.
Beep, 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 beep. I'm pretty sure that doesn't actually mean anything in Morse code.
I doubt that.
But there you go. So please remember to like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube, and to leave us a rating on iTunes and Spotify. If you like what we do here, please consider becoming a member on Patreon. Patrons get early access to our regular content, as well as a bonus episode every month, along with other benefits like stickers. Speaking of patrons, ours are super duper double track Transbay tube front, or Trans Great Salt Lake tube frontrunner tier. Zach Adams at $69.69 a month. At regular frontrunner tier, $10 a month. We have Curtis Herring, Devin Zander, Mike Christensen, and Phobos2390.
I love the Salt Lake City flag profile pic.
Yeah.
Red line tier, $5. We have
Brian Smith, Christopher Whaley, DJ Highwill Watkins.
I will.
Did he change his name to that?
He did, yeah. Jacob Whitecotton, Reluctant LA Resident, Robert P. Walsh, and Scott Harris.
At blue line tier, $3. We have Patrick Salas, Alex Dykelski, Ben Busaf, Bradley Bondi, Elijah Kensler, Ethan McDonald, Evelyn, G4, Gonzo12, Jack Dean, John Heron Gorman, Martine Hecker Martinez, Old Trolley, Schuyler Hall, and Seth.
Yeah.
This has been the Red Line Podcast. Go ride the BART with your friends and body armor.
Go ride the show.
Kyle.
With your friends.
With a friend.
With
at
a
least.
friend, yeah. Buddy system.
Buddy system.
BART buddy system. What does society come to?
Yeah, wear a mask of BART.
Yeah, wear a mask.
Yeah,
Be nice.
masks are cool.
Wearing masks is still good. I don't know why everyone's gotten out of the habit of doing it on transit, but, like, it's still good.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Bye.
Peace.
I'm gonna make, like, an important tunnels tier list.
Cool. You being the authority on tunnels?
I definitely the authority on tunnels.
And everything was so cheap back in insert year in the 60s or 50s.
I know.
Or even
Imagine
70s.
if Salt Lake City had built a metro in the 60s. They could have had SLART.
Yeah, and it would have cost like as
Salt
much
Lake
as...
Area Rapid Transit SLART.
Okay, they would have built it like cut and cover for the price we got tracks for.
Probably.
Yeah. This is obscene.
Well, that's the whole reason we're making a podcast, is because no one did that.
Yeah, if they did do that, we probably wouldn't need the podcast.
No, we would not be
if
here
Salt
right
Lake
now.
City had like a whole ass subway system, I would just not give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would not have a podcast.
Hear that, Salt Lake City and at RideUTA on Twitter. If you build a comprehensive Salt Lake City subway system that I'm
And
satisfied
decades
with
of development and improved connecting infrastructure that
tomorrow,
follow.
then I will stop doing this podcast and stop saying things about you.
Sounds like a good deal.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah, let's keep doing this podcast until we get a Salt Lake City subway.
Every city that I think I might want to live in should do that. So Salt Lake City has to do that.
Well, every mid-sized to large city should do this.
Yeah. Otherwise, I will...
Sorry, every mid-sized to large city should have done this in the 60s.
Otherwise, I will beep.
You in Minecraft.
Yeah.
Bye.